What kind of person places a fortune on the collapse of their own nation? What kind of mind sees a currency, an economy, a government struggling to survive, and decides, this is my moment? Not to help, not to warn, but to profit, to short it, to bet billions that their country will fail, and then watches as it does. This has happened 5 times in modern history. 5 billionaires who made the most controversial, most ruthless, most brilliant trades ever recorded. They saw what governments refused to see. They bet against central banks, against treasuries, against the full power of nations. And they won spectacularly. George Soros broke the Bank of England and made $1 billion in a single day. Warren Buffett shorted the US dollar and made hundreds of millions betting against America. John Paulson bet against the housing market and walked away with $4 billion while families lost their homes. Kyle Bass is shorting Japan's entire economy, waiting for a debt implosion that could reshape Asia, and hedge funds shorted Russia twice, profiting from chaos, collapse, and currency death. These aren't villains, they're realists, and the pattern they see, the signals they follow, those same signals are flashing again right now, in the 2020s. And the question isn't if another billionaire is shorting a nation. The question is, which nation are they shorting? And is it yours? If you want to understand how billionaires see collapses before they happen, why shorting a nation isn't betrayal but elite-level realism, and what the next billion-dollar short could be, smash that like button and subscribe. Because this channel reveals the trades that reshape the world, the bets that most people never see, and the patterns that predict which nations will survive and which will fall. And what you're about to learn will change the way you see money, power, and the game being played above your head. So why do billionaires short their own nations? Here's the truth. It's not about patriotism. It's not about loyalty. It's about survival and wealth. Billionaires see risks early. They have access to data, to advisors, to information that most people never see. They understand debt cycles, currency mechanics, market structure. And when they see a mismatch, when they see a government defending the indefensible, they act. Second, they hedge their wealth. If your country is about to collapse, if your currency is about to crash, the worst thing you can do is hold assets in that currency. Shorting isn't betrayal, it's protection. And third, they exploit mispriced markets. Governments lie. Central banks manipulate. But math doesn't lie. And when the math says a currency, a bond, a market is overvalued, billionaires bet against it because they know the truth always wins. Here's what most people don't understand. Shorting a nation isn't about hoping it fails. It's about recognizing that it already has. The collapse is baked in. The numbers don't work. The policies are unsustainable. And the billionaire is simply positioning for reality. Now let's look at the 5 times this happened. 5 collapses, 5 fortunes, and 1 repeating pattern. Case number 1, George Soros versus the Bank of England, 1992. The year is 1992. Britain is part of the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, the ERM. It's a system designed to keep European currencies stable by pegging them to each other. The British pound is pegged to the German Deutschmark. But there's a problem. The peg is artificial. The pound is overvalued. The British economy is weak. Unemployment is rising. Interest rates are too high to defend the peg, but the government refuses to admit it. Enter George Soros. Soros is a Hungarian-born billionaire who runs the Quantum Fund. He's a currency trader, a speculator, and he sees what the British government refuses to see. The peg cannot hold. So Soros does something audacious. He borrows billions of pounds and he shorts them. He bets that the pound will collapse. The British government fights back. The Bank of England burns through its foreign currency reserves, trying to buy pounds and prop up the price. They raise interest rates to 15%, trying to defend the peg. But it's not enough. The math doesn't work. On September 16, 1992, Black Wednesday, the British government gives up. They abandon the peg, the pound crashes, and Soros closes his position. He makes over $1 billion in a single day. The British economy is shaken, the government is humiliated, and Soros becomes the man who broke the Bank of England. The lesson: governments can't beat mathematics. When a currency is overvalued, when the fundamentals don't support the price, no amount of intervention can save it. The collapse is inevitable. The only question is timing, and Soros had the timing perfect. Now, here's the parallel to today. Central banks around the world are defending currencies, bonds, and markets that the fundamentals don't support. They're printing money, buying assets, manipulating rates. But the math doesn't work. And when the peg breaks, when the intervention fails, someone will make a fortune, just like Soros. Case number 2, Warren Buffett. Shorts the US dollar. 2002 to 2006. Warren Buffett is known as the Oracle of Omaha, America's most beloved investor, the guy who buys American companies and holds them forever. But in the early 2000s, Buffett does something shocking. He bets against the US dollar. Why? Because he sees the math. America is running massive trade deficits, importing far more than it exports. The government is spending recklessly. The dollar is overvalued. And Buffett knows that eventually the market will correct. So between 2002 and 2006, Buffett buys billions of dollars in foreign currencies, euros, British pounds, other currencies. He's essentially shorting the dollar, and he's public about it. He writes in his annual shareholder letters that the dollar is in trouble, that America's trade imbalances are unsustainable, that the world will eventually lose confidence, and he's right. Over the next few years, the dollar weakens, and Buffett makes hundreds of millions of dollars on the trade. Eventually, he closes the position, but the message is clear. Even America's most famous investor, the guy who embodies Main Street values, will bet against the US when the math breaks. The lesson? National loyalty doesn't override financial reality. When a currency is overvalued, when debt is out of control, when the fundamentals are broken, smart money moves. It doesn't matter if it's your country. Now look at today. As debt is over $35 trillion. The trade deficit is still massive. The dollar's share of global reserves is declining. And billionaires are quietly moving out of dollars and into hard assets. Gold, real estate, foreign currencies. The same pattern, the same bet. And if Buffett did it once, others are doing it now. Case number 3, John Paulson and the 2008 housing collapse. This is the big one, the trade that made financial history. The year is 2005. The U.S. housing market is booming. Home prices are skyrocketing. Everyone believes real estate only goes up. Banks are handing out subprime mortgages to anyone with a pulse. Wall Street is packaging those mortgages into bonds and selling them as safe investments. AAA rated, no risk. But John Paulson, a hedge fund manager, sees something different. He studies the data, the mortgage data, and he realizes that millions of these loans are garbage. People with no income, no assets, no ability to repay. And when interest rates reset, when the teaser rates expire, they will default massively. So Paulson makes a bet. He buys credit default swaps on subprime mortgage bonds. Essentially, he's buying insurance that pays out when the bonds collapse. It's a short, a massive short, and Wall Street thinks he's crazy. The housing market is strong, they say. The models say it's safe, they say. But Paulson knows the models are wrong. Then 2007, the defaults start. 2008, the collapse accelerates. Lehman Brothers fails. Bear Stearns is gone. The housing market crashes, subprime bonds become worthless, and Paulson's credit default swaps explode in value. He makes $4 billion. Personally, the largest profit in financial history from a single trade. Families lose their homes. Banks collapse. The economy enters the Great Recession, and Paulson walks away a billionaire. The lesson? The biggest warnings hide in plain sight. Everyone knew subprime lending was risky. Everyone knew the housing market was overheated, but no one wanted to believe it would collapse, except Paulson. He didn't hope for the collapse. He simply saw it coming and positioned for reality. Now look at today. Housing prices are at record highs again. Affordability is worse than 2008. Corporate landlords are buying up neighborhoods. Speculation is back. And the fundamentals, wages, employment, debt, don't support the prices. History says this ends badly. And somewhere, someone is making the next Paulson trade. Case number 4, Kyle Bass versus Japan, 2010 to today. Kyle Bass is a hedge fund manager famous for one thing, patience. In 2010, Bass starts studying Japan, and he sees a disaster in slow motion. Japan has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the developed world, over 230%. The population is aging, shrinking. The Bank of Japan has been printing money for decades. Interest rates are zero, sometimes negative, and the economy is stagnant. Base realizes that Japan's debt is unsustainable. At some point, the bond market will break, interest rates will spike, the government will lose control, and the yen will collapse. So Base places a massive bet. He shorts Japanese government bonds. He bets that yields will rise and bond prices will fall, and he waits. But here's the thing. The trade hasn't fully paid out yet. Japan keeps printing, keeps buying its own bonds, keeps suppressing rates. The collapse Base predicted hasn't happened yet, but Base isn't worried, because he knows debt cycles take time, years, sometimes decades, and he believes the math is inevitable. Japan cannot sustain this forever. The lesson? Patient bets against national debt cycles can take years, but when they pay big. And Japan is a warning for the entire developed world, because every major economy, the US, Europe, Japan, is drowning in debt. And the same dynamics that Bass sees in Japan exist everywhere. The question isn't if the debt becomes unsustainable. The question is when, and billionaires like Bass are willing to wait. Case number 5. Hedge funds that shorted Russia. 1998 and 2014. Russia has been shorted twice in modern history, and both times hedge funds made fortunes. First, 1998, Russia is in crisis. The Soviet Union collapsed. The economy is a mess. Corruption is rampant, and the government is running out of money. In August 1998, Russia defaults on its debt. The ruble collapses, loses 2/3 of its value in weeks. Hedge funds that shorted Russian bonds that bet against the ruble make massive profits. Some funds return 20, 30, 40% in a matter of weeks. Then, 2014, Russia annexes Crimea. The West imposes sanctions. The ruble is under pressure. Oil prices, Russia's main export, collapse, and hedge funds see the opportunity. They short the ruble. They bet it will crash, and it does. The ruble loses half its value in months, and again, the hedge funds win. The lesson: geopolitical chaos equals billionaire opportunity. When governments make bad decisions, when sanctions hit, when currencies are under pressure, someone profits, and it's always the people who see it coming and bet accordingly. Now look at the world today. Geopolitical instability is rising. US-China tensions, Russia-Ukraine, Middle East conflicts, sanctions, currency wars. The global order is fracturing, and billionaires are positioning for the chaos, shorting currencies, buying gold, hedging risk. Because history shows that every crisis creates winners, and they intend to be on the winning side. So what did these 5 billionaires actually see? What's the pattern? First, government denial. In every case, the government insisted everything was fine. The Bank of England said the peg would hold. The US said housing was safe. Japan says its debt is manageable. Governments always deny until the collapse. Second, unsustainable debt. Every short was built on debt that couldn't be repaid. Third, failing currency pegs or overvaluations. When a currency is artificially propped up, it will eventually fall. Fourth, asset bubbles, housing, bonds, currencies. When prices disconnect from fundamentals, smart money shorts. Fifth, policy mistakes. Governments printing too much, central banks keeping rates too low. Bad decisions create opportunities. And sixth, the public is unaware. When everyone believes the narrative, when the masses trust the system, that's when billionaires bet against it. Here's the truth. When these signals align, billionaires don't panic. They bet, they position, they profit. So what about the 2020s? What's the next nation-level short? Because all the signals are flashing. Debt is rising globally. Currency devaluations are accelerating. Inflation wars are intensifying. Geopolitical fragmentation is deepening, and hedge funds are already positioning. Some are shorting US long-term bonds, betting that yields will rise and prices will fall. Some are shorting Chinese property markets, betting on a real estate collapse. Some are shorting emerging market currencies, betting on defaults and devaluations. The next billion-dollar short may already be placed, and the target may be closer than you think. Here's the final question. Who's shorting America today? Because the signs are there. Rising bets against US debt. Billionaires moving into hard assets. Gold purchases at record levels. Quiet shifts toward foreign bonds, commodities, real estate. The smart money is hedging. They're not fleeing, not yet, but they're preparing, because they see the same pattern that Soros saw in Britain, that Buffett saw in the dollar, that Paulson saw in housing. The debt doesn't work, the fundamentals are broken, and the collapse, when it comes, will be massive. Here's the truth. Nations don't collapse because billionaires bet against them. Billionaires bet against them because the collapse has already begun. The math is done, the outcome is set, the only question is timing. And when the next billionaire makes the next nation-level short, when they walk away with billions while the economy burns, remember this: they didn't cause the collapse. They just saw it coming, and they positioned for reality. The question now is, will you?